All right. Thank you so much, Danny. Danny, you always have the nicest things to say about people, so I appreciate it a ton. Hello, Central Region. I am excited to talk to you guys today. Happy SC2. SC2 is hands down my favorite Cutco event of the year. Every single year, I look forward to this event, whether it's in person or virtual. I look forward to it every single year. Raise your hand, please. I'm going to go to gallery view here. Raise your hand if this is your first ever SC2. Oh, yeah, and people are doing the hand. Awesome. Nice. Okay, tons of people. Okay, that is fabulous. First ever SC2. Okay, keep your hand raised if this is your first ever Cutco conference ever. All right. Love it. Okay, lots of, oh, I saw a veteran have their hand up. Put your hand down. This is not your first Cutco conference, but that's awesome. Thank you very much for participating. I remember going to my first ever Cutco conference, and my first conference was SC1, but first conference. And I remember one of the main things that I took away from that event was just this sense of proof, right? The sense of proof that like, wow, I heard all these things that my manager would talk about, right? About these big orders and people that would sell a lot. And it was the first opportunity that I had that I actually got to see people do it, right? And get to hear from them personally. And I'm going to talk more about that later, but I hope that's one of the things that really sets in for you today is proof that it happens, right? There's real people that do this stuff, that sell a lot, that grow, right? People like Colton Horn that, get amazing things from Vector and go off to do amazing other things in life. And it's real. And I hope that sets in for you today of, it's possible for you too. Okay. So let me share my slides here. What I'm going to talk to you guys today about is $1,000 orders. All right. $1,000 orders. This is, it sounds like a very, exciting topic, right? Raise your hand if you've ever had a $1,000 order before, please. Oh shoot, I can't get my gallery view up, but that's all right. Oh my gosh, I'm seeing all these notifications. Lots of hand raised. Okay, lots of $1,000. That's fantastic. Now, when you have $1,000, you know that it's pretty exciting, right? It feels really great. Depending on your commission level, you maybe made $200, $300, $400, $500, right? For our FSMs or CSPs, and making $500 on a $1,000 order. How would that feel, right? If you're at 20%, you're making $200. That's a pretty good hour, in my opinion. And for those of you that have had multiple $1,000 orders, you can probably attest to the fact that if you have had multiple, a lot of times they look different, right? In other words, like if you've had a lot of $1,000 orders, it's not the same order every single time. Now, can you go out and sell 2 homemakers to 2 different people? Yeah, absolutely. That's the same order. But if you've been around a while, you've had multiple $1,000 orders, there's lots of different avenues and ways to get there. So the first point that I have with this is what I want you to know is that there is no one path to victory with this, right? For instance, you could sell a homemaker, but you could also sell a signature set. You could sell an ultimate set. You could sell a $1,000 like list. You could sell $1,000 of just outdoor hunting and fishing tools, right? You could sell an outdoors package. You could sell flatware. You could sell cookware, right? You could have $1,000 order simply by upselling, which we'll talk about a little bit later. So my point is there is no one path to look at. And you think about if we think about sports, right? I'm not a huge sports person, but if we think about somebody that's very well known in the sports world, I think about Tom Brady, right? I'll use the obvious example. Tom Brady has won a lot of Super Bowls. We all know that. In other words, Tom Brady has had a lot of $1,000 orders. Yes, I'm comparing a $1,000 order to winning a Super Bowl. Absolutely. Okay. But he's had a lot of won a lot of Super Bowls, had a lot of $1,000 orders. And if you were to look back at every Super Bowl that he's won, none of them looked the same, right? He didn't run the same plays every single Super Bowl. They all looked different. So my point is, the relation here is, I wish I could say, hey, say this every single time and you'll have a $1,000 order. Hey, do this exact thing every single time, you'll sell $1,000. That's just not the reality though. So it wouldn't be fair to say that. I'm going to give you a few different things here that you can use, right? Some one-liners, some different avenues that'll, help you increase your average order size and things like that. But I'm going to give you these things. It's up to you to decide and to kind of navigate when you use them, how you use them, what you say, when, and that type of thing. Okay. Now, how do you figure this out? It's by actually practicing and trying it out with customers. We'll talk about that at the end, but it's allowing yourself to actually get in front of customers to try this stuff out, allow yourself to fail, because you're not going to be perfect at it right away. No one is ever born great at selling $1,000 orders or born great at winning Super Bowls, right? It takes a lot of practice. Okay. So one of the first things that is important in terms of big orders, $1,000 orders, is at the very beginning of the appointment. One of the things that I think has made a really big difference for me is building trust with the customer through questions. People's number one complaint that they typically have about salespeople is that they don't listen and that they feel like they don't care. Okay. So one of the easiest ways for a customer to feel, heard, feel understood, and also to feel like they trust the person that they're working with is through questions. Do you guys know what everyone's number one thing that they like to talk about is? It's themselves, right? So you can ask them personal questions. Absolutely. I recommend that. But in terms of like cooking stuff, if we're talking Cutco related, here's some amazing questions to ask at the beginning that will build trust with the customer. Hey, Mrs. Jones, who does most of the cooking at home? Is it you? You do most of the cooking? Oh, your spouse does most of the cooking? Got it. Well, hey, I'm sure they could at least trust your judgment on some sharp knives. Okay, pre-handle an objection. Okay, what type of things do you make, right? What will you make tonight? What will you make tomorrow? How many nights a week would you say you eat at home? Do you guys do meats, veggies, soups, salads, root vegetables, pasta? What's your favorite thing you make? What's your spouse's favorite thing that you make? Well, hey, you'll love Cutco. I went through these pretty quickly, but the idea here is when you start to ask these types of questions at the very beginning of the appointment, the customer now feels heard, and they're also going to really feel that you're not trying to sell them something that they don't need, right? And when someone feels like they can trust the person that they're working with, they're going to be way more likely to spend $1,000 plus with somebody. If I don't trust the person I'm working with, and I feel like they're trying to sell me something that I won't need or won't use, I'm so unlikely to spend a lot of money with that person. Okay, so building trust through questions is a really impactful thing. Okay, in another term of having $1,000 orders, one of my biggest tips that I can have. Oops, went too fast. There we go. Is framing the customer's perspective on what a lot is. Okay. One of our district managers in North Star, Casey Fenlon, he always tells everybody framing is everything. And this is so true in the course of selling Cutco. Framing is everything. Who's ever, maybe when you were brand new at selling Cutco, you start by showing the homemaker, right? Start by showing the homemaker. And sometimes the response when you show somebody the homemaker and you go right down to the galley, the customer, if that's the first thing that they see, they sometimes feel like, oh, that's a really big set. I don't know if I would need it, right? That's a big set. I think I would need something smaller or a few pieces. But what if you could actually frame the customer's perspective to believe that the homemaker was actually a smaller set, right? What if you could make the customer feel that the homemaker was the basic set? Okay. So underneath here, you're going to see 3-set close. Now, I'm not going to go over the 3-set close. There's lots of different ways that you can present a 3-set close to your customer. What is a 3-set close? It's showing the signature and the ultimate set, right? And closing on those 3 main sets as opposed to dropping down from the homemaker to the galley. Okay. But this 3-set close, again, it really shapes the customer's perspective. So I'll give you a really brief line, an easy way to shape the customer's perspective on how basic a homemaker set is. And again, a homemaker is $1,300. That's a $1,000 order. Okay. So Mrs. Jones, this ultimate set here, this is the set that everyone wants, but not everyone can afford. Okay. This has all the customer requested tools that people wrote in over the years and asked that we make. Okay. Now the homemaker set, this was the first set we ever came out with in 1949. Customers loved it. That's why we still have it. But again, they wrote in and requested some new tools. So that's why we came out with this ultimate set here. But again, over the years, people wrote in and said that it was just a little bit too big for the average family. So that's why we came out with the family set, which is right in between. That's why the family set is, I'll say it again, that's why the family set is perfect, because it's right in between. It actually comes with the 10 basic tools in the homemaker, plus the 3 most customer requested tools that people tended to add on later. Okay. That people tended to add on later. So again, that's one example, but now what does that do to the homemaker set? It makes it look really, really small, right? When you start showing the signature and the ultimate set, the homemaker is now what? It's the basic set. And when you start referring to the homemaker as the basic set and you show the family set and the complete set, and you say, hey, which one do you think would make the most sense for you out of these three? They're like, you know what? We don't do a ton of cooking. We're probably pretty basic. And now the homemaker is a basic set at $1,300 instead of a basic set at, $400 starter set. Right? So framing the customer's perspective on what a lot is makes a really big difference. Also, a Cutco kitchen intro, right? What if you could make an ultimate set of knives seem really small to the customer? What if you could do that, right? And that's $2,500. Talk about having an exciting average order size, right? How do you do that? Here you go. Cutco kitchen seed plant. Okay. I didn't create this. I can't take credit for it. I took this from Josh Muller, who's one of the top CSPs in the company. Okay. But at the beginning of the presentation, here's a really easy way to shape the customer's perspective on what a lot is. Go ahead and take a picture of this. I wouldn't try to write all it down, screenshot it, take a picture. Okay. But I will go through it once. So Mrs. Jones, just so you know, most of our clients are actually working towards what they call the Cutco kitchen. So lots of people know about us and they think that we're just a knife company, but we're actually a full service kitchen company. And most people that we find actually have a hodgepodge of pots and pans, silverware, a drawer or multiple drawers full of gadgets and accessories that they've bought over the years, plus a block, a drawer full of knives, right? Half of which they never use. You know what I'm talking about? Right, just like most people. Well, the cool thing is that when you get it all here with Cutco, what's great is that you're going to have a product that you're going to have for the rest of your life. It's an American company, so you're supporting the American economy. And because of the guarantee, which I'll explain to you, you'll have and use this every single day. So imagine if you ever remodel your kitchen or if you ever move or anything like that, what's cool is you'll never have to upgrade your knives, cookware, flatware, or accessories again, because you already have the best of the best and you'll have it for the rest of your life. Talk about perspective, right? For the customer, when you're talking about an entire Cutco kitchen, right? You're talking about all this stuff, not just knives, but flatware, cookware, all this stuff. Now the knives are what? Super basic, right? When it comes to closing on the knives, it's like, yeah, you know what? We'll just start with the knife set. As opposed to, yeah, we'll just start with a couple of pieces. Framing is everything. Perspective is so important in shaping that for what's a lot for the customer, okay? Okay, I want to talk about this. I went one slide too far. Okay, and this is what I was, one more point on this too, is the customer has to see everything that we make. They have to know about all the stuff, right? I remember being a new rep and being like, man, I never sell flatware or cookware. And then somebody said to me, well, do you show it to every customer? And I'm like, well, no. It's like, well, yeah, there's your problem right there. If they don't know that we make it, they can't buy it. So the customer has to see and know everything that we make, right? If they don't know that we have it, they can't buy it. All right. Let me go back here. I'm out of order a little bit. Now, one easy way to get a really big order size, okay, is when you're selling to new customers. Okay, now you can have really big orders with showing to Cutco owners, right? There's lots of ways to do that, especially with the, upgrade program to a bigger set, especially with flatware, cookware. Like there's definitely ways, a lot of ways to sell big orders to Cutco owners, right? Our top CSPs will sometimes tell you that that's the easiest way to sell big orders. But a really easy way to get a big sale, as we know, is to sell a larger set, right? Homemaker, Signature, Ultimate. Now, one of the questions that I like to ask at the beginning of the presentation is, hey, what kind of knives do you currently use? Right? We sometimes talk about this in the presentation. When you go over junk knives, you might ask that question, but you should explicitly ask, hey, what kind of knives, Mrs. Jones, do you currently use? Do you know what you guys currently use at home? Okay, it's a, curiosity question. Now, who's ever had somebody where you maybe ask that question, or when you're going over the competitors with the customer and they say, oh yeah, we've got the Wusthof. Right? Who's ever had that happen and your immediate response in your head is, ah, oh, shoot. Right? Because you're like, yeah, I just saw a couple people raise their hand. Awesome. You're like, oh, shoot, right? They've got high quality stuff. Well, what if instead of thinking, oh, shoot, instead of that, you were like, oh, yes. That's actually the way that our top reps will look at it when someone says that they have high quality knives. Okay, so here's a really easy way to frame it. Oh, that's awesome, Mrs. Jones. That's awesome that you have Wusthof. You know what? Wusthof owners are actually some of our best customers because they already know and appreciate quality, but they like that ours are much lower maintenance and they last forever. right? So what are you doing here? You're telling the customer how you want them to feel. You're in control. You're telling the customer how you want them to feel. Instead, if you don't do this, what is the customer doing? They're telling you how they feel, right? And you're the knife expert. You're giving the demo. You're the one giving the presentation. Okay. You get to tell them how you want to feel. Oh, Mrs. Jones, that's awesome that you have Wusthof, right? If you're excited about it, what are they going to do? They're going to be excited about the fact that they have Wusthof too. And they're going to be like, why would she be excited that I have Wusthof? Huh, it's maybe because I'm going to like Cutco. Hey, Mrs. Jones, Wusthof owners are actually some of our best customers because they already know and appreciate quality, but they really like that ours are much lower maintenance and they last forever. Okay. Really great way to frame the customer's perspective, right? You're telling them how you want them to feel. Okay. All right, let's talk about this. I'll add order. All right, go ahead and write down upselling if you're taking notes. Upselling. This is such an easy way to add to your average order size. This is how reps will literally add on $1,000 to their order, right? They might be getting a $500 order and they up it to $1,500, right? Or they might be writing up a $300 order and they up it to $800. Okay. Now, what I want you to recognize, and I want you to hear from this, is upselling actually works 50% of the time. Okay, here's what upselling is. It's asking for more once you hear a yes. And that's actually really important. Okay, it's asking for more after you hear a yes. And here's the fine print as well. It's asking for more once you actually get the credit card information. That's really important. Do not try to upsell before you get their payment info. Trust me, it will butcher it and it will confuse the customer. I'll talk about that a little bit more in a second, okay? But this works 50% of the time. And the easiest way to upsell is right here. Write this down. Okay, so it goes like this. Hey, Mrs. Jones, just so you know, the more you get, the more you save. So because you're doing the homemaker set today, if you did the signature set, I can do blank, right? So just so you know, the more you get, the more you save. Because you're doing blank, if you do blank, I can do blank. Right? So you're coming across initially as informational, right? Hey, Mrs. Jones, just so you know, just so you're aware, the more you get, the more you save. Because you're doing the homemaker set today, if you wanted to actually go ahead and get the signature, I know you liked some of those pieces. If you wanted to go ahead and get the signature, I could actually take an extra $200 off the price, right? Or if you wanted to get that signature, I could actually throw in that barbecue set that you really liked. Okay. Now, on this last set that I had, there was a number 50%. Upselling works 50% of the time. What does that mean? It means that 50% of the customers that you ask for more on, they will say yes. Okay, that's a study by Josh Mueller, again, one of the top CSPs in the entire company. When you ask for the order, right, on an upsell, 50% of people will say yes. Can you imagine if you added an extra $1,000 or $500 to half of your orders? That adds up. And if you knew that was true, because it's a stat, right? I'm not making this up. 50% of the people say yes. That adds a ton. Okay. Now, again, I'm going to go back to this fine print. It has to be after you get the credit card. Okay. If you try to upsell before you get the credit card information on whatever you're closing on initially, if you try to upsell before you get the credit card, it will just confuse the customer. And a confused mind always says no. Okay, so remember that. A confused mind always says no. And if the customer isn't sure, and if there's not an easy option to fall back on if they do say no, sometimes the whole thing can fall through. Okay, so just remember that. Get the credit card first, and makes a really big difference. And 50% of people will say yes. That is worth it to ask every single time on your appointments. Hey, would you like to get more? Okay. All right. All right, last thing I want to talk about here, make sure I'm good on time. All right, now I talked about this at the very beginning, this concept of proof, right? This concept of proof. And I remember being in my first SC2 actually, right before my first SC2, I remember being at the office and we had these old CDs of old vector messages, right? That like the old vector grades gave. And I remember coming across this CD right before my first SC2 push. And I didn't know what it was, but I grabbed it, threw it in my car so I could listen to it, right, in between my appointments. And the name of the message was Flip the Switch by Mark Lovis. And if you've been around a while, you may have heard that message. It's one of like the best all-time great vector messages out there. Look it up on Vector Connect if you'd like. Flip the Switch by Mark Lovis, Lovis. Okay. And I remember in that message, I was listening to it in between my SC2 appointments, right? I was trying to be really intentional about the information I was taking in. And I remember he talks about this concept of proof. And he talked about this phrase of, when you see someone that does these things, right? Selling big orders, later you're going to see the people that sold the most for the push, that sold $15,000, $20,000, $25,000. It's really easy to look at those people and say, wow, that is amazing. Like, wow, I just can't believe it. Like, that's way more than I did, or I can't even imagine doing that. Instead of thinking, wow, what if you turn that into how? Right? What if you started asking yourself, instead of just being so, blown away and mesmerized, what if you started asking yourself the question, how could I do that? Talk about a more powerful question, right? I was just talking to Elliot James about this the other day, right? Branch manager, one of the best. You guys will hear from him tomorrow. But we were talking about this the other day, and the concept of life will, there's a Tony Robbins quote, I'm trying to remember now. Life will always pay you whatever price you ask of it, right? So ask intelligently, ask questions intelligently to allow yourself to get better answers. Now, I talked about this before, and I'll wrap up with this as well. I know I'm a little short on time. No one is ever born great at selling $1,000 orders. It's just not the case, right? I've had a lot of $1,000 orders. I couldn't always sell $1,000 orders, right? I started out the exact same way that everybody else did. But what did I do? What do our top FSMs, our top CSPs, our people that sell $1,000 orders all the time, is they allow themselves to actually try, and they allow themselves to fail, right? They have failed more times than you have ever tried. Okay. So they've allowed themselves to step into the arena to get beat up, right? Brandon Brown, #1 CSP in the entire company. He sold $1 million personally in 2019. $1 million personally. Consider that, right? And his favorite quote that I always hear from him is, embrace the suck, right? Embrace the opportunity to totally suck at something, because that's how you get good. And one of my favorite things about Cutco is that you don't have to earn time in the arena. You don't have to earn time in the Super Bowl the way Tom Brady does. You get to choose to step into the arena, right? You can choose to suck as many times as you want with customers until you get really good. You can choose to be good, right? So step into the arena. Thank you so much. I do want to wrap up by just saying thank you to all of you, Central Region. Thanks for being here. And a big thank you. I'm going to unscreen share here. A big thank you to our Central Region staff, Mike, Ann, Jen, Cindy, Kyle. For those of you that don't know, there's a ton of effort and energy that they put in to put on this event. So thank you so much for the engagement and everything. And yeah, thank you guys so much. Enjoy the rest of the event.